Welcome to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. Legal issues simplified through real client stories and real-world experiences. Creating simplicity in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto, with my co-host, Michael Byrd.
As a business and healthcare law firm, we meet a lot of interesting people and learn their amazing stories. This season's theme is unintended consequences. We sometimes find ourselves in a situation that can be traced back to a seemingly inconsequential or unrelated decision.
All right, Michael, what do you have for us today?
I have a fascinating story that I came across recently, Brad.
All right, I'll be the judge whether or not it's fascinating, but what's it about?
It's about a drill sergeant gone soft. When you picture, Brad, the stereotypical drill sergeant, who do you picture? And Brad, yes, you can reference a drill sergeant from a movie as long as you promise not to take us down movie talk.
First, I'm super proud of you going to movie talk. I'm finally paying you off that I'm around you a lot, so I'm rubbing maybe in a good way on you for movie talk. Second, determining the best drill sergeant of all time, it's like a three-way tie depending on where you're looking at. So we have Sergeant Emil Foley from Officers in General.
Old movie.
Yes, great, though. Sergeant Holka from the movie Stripes.
Old movie, and yes, awesome.
And maybe the most famous drill sergeant, who will be someone who actually was a U.S. Marine drill sergeant before his Marine career, known as Gunnery Sergeant Hartman from Full Metal Jacket. Now, all right, I'm curious, who do you picture?
Full Metal Jacket, Sergeant Hartman. I have to lean into the old movie reference, Brad, and he just was so hardcore with his training methods, and there's so many memorable lines.
Yeah, and believe it or not, I read that many of the lines from the movie were ad-libs because they were like, just do what you would do. And so that's why he just was able to make such incredible statements.
Stuck in our brain forever.
Yes.
Well, I heard a story, Brad, about someone famous
Okay.
who you would never guess was a former drill sergeant, unless, of course, you've actually heard the story too. It's an unsuspecting person because he is known throughout the world as one of the softest, calmest humans around.
Kermit the Frog?
Well, that's a frog, Brad, not a human.
Oh.
Well, unless you count the person, the puppeteer.
Wait,
But
Muppets aren't real?
no, Brad. Yeah, we'll have a little therapy session after we're done. Okay. So here's some more details to help you hopefully improve your guesses about our mystery sergeant. The man that I'm talking about served in the Air Force for 20 years and actually reached the rank of Master Sergeant. Ooh. He was infamously known as a yeller, and he was feared among everyone who served under him.
Soft-spoken, but a terror before that. Yep, still don't know.
Okay, well, here's the twist. He hated it.
Oh.
He hated the yelling and screaming and felt like he was having to play this kind of role his entire career. And actually, he was a pretty chill person when he was not working.
Well, at least he didn't take his job home with him, so that's kind of cool.
Well, that's true. So I would give you another clue. He was stationed in the Air Force Base in Alaska, and this is where he first saw and was inspired by snow and mountains.
So he became a famous skier?
I guess that's slightly better than Kermit the Frog as a guess, but no, Brad.
Okay.
He was so inspired that he actually started painting the snow and mountains to help manage the stress of being a world-class yeller at work.
So I think I'm right in this one, and feeling pretty confident. I think it's Vincent van Gogh.
Okay, you're just going backwards now. So after 20 years, he retired, and he actually vowed never to yell again once he stopped working.
Is it the actor John Krasinski, and he went to A Quiet Place?
Okay, you're just not even trying anymore. So, you ready for the answer?
Yes, I think our audience is too.
The mystery sergeant we're talking about is none other than the painter Bob Ross. Oh. He is, of course, known for his TV show with his quick painting techniques and, more than anything, his calming voice.
Yeah, I had no idea. I'm sure half the audience has no idea what you're talking about either.
Yeah, and believe it or not, this is we save our little stories we hear for our opening banter, and I actually got this from Instagram Reels.
Ooh,
so
okay. It's
my modernization of learning my interesting content. And yeah, I had no idea either. I was stunned. And I have memories during college of coming home from class, and my roommate Guy would have Bob Ross playing in the background with this calm voice, and he loved it. And I could not stand it. So we, of course, would be ruthless with each other about him watching it.
Sure.
But I have always had a nostalgic reaction to Bob Ross because it does remind me of my college days.
College days equals, a.k.a. Bob Ross, which then equals drinking lots of beer. Okay, got it.
Oddly, you're not wrong there.
Excellent.
Yeah, so that's a Pavlovian response. Let's jump into our story today about unintended consequences.
Perfect, Michael. What story do you got for us today?
All right. Today's story is about a plastic surgeon in the Southeast who is building a busy practice. We will call him Dr. Tony Stark.
I'm quite worried. Who is this man sitting next to me? What have you done with my partner, Michael Byrd? Wait. We got some movies here, Sergeant, and then we're going to Marvel characters. Never mind. I don't want you to answer that. I do not object to anything you ever want to use. You're welcome to use Tony Stark, even though I think we used his name in another show.
Yes, I think we did too. But and I don't plan to go deep into movie talk today, so don't get your hopes up.
Oh.
But I was trying to think of someone famous who captured the frenetic pace to life that our Dr. Tony led.
Okay, and for you people out there who are not Marvel dorks like me, Tony Stark, a.k.a. the Iron Man, is from the Marvel movies, and he's known for always being this, bigger-than-life kind of person, but working tirelessly in high-pressure situations, both in his personal and professional life.
Dr. Tony was building a thriving practice that we'll call Iron Man Plastic Surgery.
Approve.
And honing in on a unique surgical procedure that was drawing acclaim to him around the world. When he was not operating, he was creating videos, he was appearing on shows and podcasts, and otherwise educating the world about his unique procedure that he believed solved a very unique problem in plastic surgery. And so he was also had several ancillary service lines he was developing, including he white-labeled skin products with the Iron Man name.
Nice. That's kind of cool. But, for many successful surgery practices, they not only have to have a robust surgery practice you were describing, and they probably have a great non-invasive practice, a.k.a. a med spa, but they need to develop their own skin products some of them will develop their own skin products with their names on it. Often these products are white labeled, meaning that some other outside vendor or brand is actually developing it, but the practice liked it so much that they're able to stick their name on top of it.
Very good, Brad. So Dr. Tony also started building a wellness brand that he felt dovetailed into his unique procedure. He had various Iron Man supplements that he sold to help optimize a patient's health for surgery, and he would also prescribe GLP-1s for patients who needed to lose weight before their surgery.
Yeah, and I would say this, what most plastic surgeons love about the wellness and weight loss being added to the practice is the sustainability. Sustainability in the form of patient care and obviously financial viability. A medical practice adding these types of treatments, also known as longevity, means you're providing continuous care for these patients, both in the aesthetic side, meaning how they look, and then wellness side, how they feel inside. And this helps evolve with the patients in this, as the patient changes and their healthcare needs changes, you still can work with them, which means you have long-lasting patients. And that means the medical practice has also, long-lasting or ensuring their financial viability.
Yep, totally agree. Well, Dr. Tony, Brad, he believed that he had more than 24 hours in a day, unlike most normal humans.
Yeah.
And so I actually picture him being that guy that wakes up at 3 a.m. and goes to bed at 11. You see those videos of Kobe Bryant that would have like a workout at 3 in the morning and then a breakfast and a second workout in the morning. So he would work out 4 times in a day instead of 2 a days. That's our guy, Dr. Tony. And he never seemed to lose energy to do more and more.
And, it's pretty impressive. And I'm wondering, going back to where we started this show today, I wonder if he had a drill sergeant that really helped keep him motivated.
Maybe so, Brad. Maybe so.
Okay.
All right. Dr. Tony, did Brad start running into some friction because of this busyness?
Did he actually realize someone set him down and said there's only 24 hours a day? Or was he like falling asleep on the job, which is kind of scary if you're a surgeon?
Yeah, both fair questions. I don't know.
Okay.
But he had created an unsustainable model that was way too dependent on him to succeed. So start with this. He had a specialized surgery that only he could perform.
Okay.
So you have that. And then he personally recorded all the content that was to educate people about these surgeries.
Mm-hmm.
On the business side, he felt like he needed to be heavily involved because patients flew in from all over to see him. And, on the side, he was also being the CEO of his business.
Yeah, and as you're talking about this, it reminds me of like a lot of startups, especially the entrepreneur who kind of kickstart it. You're involved in every single aspect of that business. And as it grows, you eventually have to get to the point and wonder, is that the highest and best use of the time? And I think we've talked about this in other shows, Michael, but the concept is, do I need to start firing myself from certain jobs? So is it really important for Michael to show up and make the coffee every morning? Maybe you could get someone else to make it. I mean, you make good coffee, though, so congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Or maybe am I the person that needs to really be doing all the record keeping? Or am I the person that needs to set up the room for a video? Like, the more you can fire yourself from jobs, I know those sounds like little details, but the higher you get up there, the more you might say, I might need someone else to be a CFO, or I might need someone else to take over the CEO role.
No, all good points. I mean, I've been trying to fire you from all your jobs for years, and
you just right into that.
You can't get away.
Yeah, you can cut that. That's cuttable material there, people.
But no, you're right. I mean, you start a business and you're wearing so many different hats, and you have to figure out how to have people step in for the highest and best use of your time.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this question. So, being Iron Man, he had a lot of hats on, so he had to eventually take his Iron Man hat off. So, what did Dr. Tony do with all these hats?
He knew he couldn't immediately solve finding someone else to help with the surgeries because that would require highly specialized training to teach someone this famous procedure.
Sure.
So he hired someone to be president of the practice on the business side, and we'll call him Mr. MBA. Okay.
Well, I'll say it this way, Michael. You and I have been in enough rooms with the founders, and it's a struggle sometimes for them to really think about when they've invented something or they did something, they've grown it, but eventually they get to the point where they actually their skill set might not they might not be the best person any longer to be the CEO. But it's still hard for them to think about spending money on bringing and recruiting in. Typically, you're a higher paid employee or second highest paid employee, depending on your practice, to come in as that CEO. But it's important, I think, for a lot of practices or businesses to adapt and to realize how important it is to bring someone with that skill set that they weren't trained in.
Yeah, you're right. It's a big deal. I mean, it's a 6-figure job that in addition to getting over the ability to let go of something,
right?
It's a massive investment to do it. And the good news with an MBA is they do obviously have a high level of business acumen.
Sure.
The challenge that's often faced is they don't know, in this case, the business of plastic surgery, and they definitely don't know the practice as well as the doctor.
Sure.
So Dr. Tony, as well as Dr. Tony. So it would take a lot for Mr. MBA to fully understand the nuance of, this highly specialized, even within plastic surgery, highly specialized practice at Iron Man Plastic Surgery.
All right, Michael. How did it go with Mr. MBA?
I mean, he was solid. He was good enough. He was learning the industry as the practice was scaling. And so he and Dr. Tony knew they were going to break things as they figured it out on the fly, but felt that was the only way to keep the momentum was just to go fast and do the best they could.
Yeah, the business idea that people talk about all the time. I know we said it before, but move fast and break things, suggesting that it's better to make the mistakes and learn quickly than to overly be cautious and be too slow.
Yeah, and so one of the first things they did to provide relief to Dr. Tony was to systemize the patient lead process. So with this famous surgery, patients were making inquiries from all over the world, and so they had to remove Dr. Tony as much as possible from the pre-surgery process. So they developed this system that basically had Dr. Tony interacting with the patients for the first time the week before surgery. And they had built a lot into the process from a medical standard of care perspective, so that that the quality of medical care didn't suffer.
Okay, I like that portion of it, but I feel like at this point in the story, I think we might be getting close to, or maybe hinting at the unexpected consequence.
Yes, Brad, gold star.
Yes.
One of the things they did not consider when they knew they would kind of, quote, break things was to factor in some guardrails from a risk management perspective. And so one of the filters that got lost in creating this new system was the ability to identify if there was a bad patient candidate, a.k.a. a crazy patient filter, as they might say on the street.
Yeah, I'm starting to get some my spider sense or my Iron Man sense. I don't think it has one of those. It's starting to go off. So what happened here?
Well, Brad, Miss Roberta Ross was guided through the system and operated on by Dr. Tony. Miss Roberta had significant body image issues that were undetected. These would make her a bad candidate for surgery because she would be impossible to satisfy with the results of the surgery.
Well, that is sad that Miss Ross had body images. Maybe she can look up at Uncle Bob Ross's artwork and feel better about herself. Unfortunately, we see this a lot in the plastic surgery patients that do have severe or significant body images issues. And the question for these patients, do they need a plastic surgeon or do they need a psychiatrist? Often with these patients, no matter the number of times they have surgery or how great the surgeon is, they can never really be satisfied with the outcome.
Yeah, so the cat was out of the bag. Miss Roberta was operated on was indeed not happy.
What?
And she spiraled post-surgery. She actually went to a special forum dedicated to this procedure that Dr. Tony performed. And remember, Brad, no one else does this procedure. So it's basically a forum for Dr. Tony, and posted long diatribes on how horrible Dr. Tony was.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, but unfortunately, on top of the unfortunateness, very predictable. And if Dr. Tony knew about the significant body images issue, I'm quite certain he would not have touched this patient. And what we know is when you have an angry patient, they lash out in different ways. You said one of them, which they start posting things, but they might be screaming and be hostile to your team. They can then start writing bad reviews besides that forum all over your socials or anywhere else. They can file medical board complaints in this case, or worse, not worse, but even in continue, they can file malpractice lawsuits.
Yeah, you know what happens, Brad, with killer bees?
Yes, once one bee gets on the attack, the entire hive starts swarming.
So this forum I mentioned became a killer bee hive.
Oh, no.
And everyone went on attack. It was actually pretty scary to see the negative momentum unfold.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It sounds like when people start feeding off negative energy, it just grew.
Yeah, it was not good for Dr. Tony. But let's go to break and talk legal application and hear what happened with Dr. Tony.
Many business owners use legal counsel as a last resort rather than as a proactive tool that can further their success. Why? For most, it's the fear of unknown legal costs. ByrdAdatto's Access Plus program makes it possible for you to get the ongoing legal assistance you need for one predictable monthly fee. That gives you unlimited phone and email access to the legal team, so you can receive feedback on legal concerns as they arise. Access Plus, a smarter, simpler way to access legal services. Find out more. Visit ByrdAdatto.com today.
Welcome back to Legal 123's at ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto, with my co-host, Michael Byrd. Now, Michael, this season, our theme is unintended consequences. And we have a couple of layers really discussed when talking about unintended consequences with today's story. First, let's talk about the go fast and break things strategy that Dr. Tony and Mr. MBA implemented with his surgical practice.
I think any entrepreneur has done this at some level. In many ways, this strategy captures the energy of a young, growing, and dynamic business. We always call it pirate mode. And there is a positive side to this strategy. And the unintended consequence is that when you're going fast, the team doing so can only go fast in the areas where they're actually subject matter experts. Mr. MBA was not a subject matter expert on risk management for creating a systemized approach for intaking plastic surgery patients or leads.
Yeah, that's another great point, Michael. So I think you deserve a gold star here. But the balance between speed and expertise and entrepreneurship, right? While moving quickly can indeed harness the energy and grow the business, it also can obviously lead to gaps in the knowledge, and especially in any type of specialized healthcare. But we're talking about a gentleman who literally, that you said no one else could actually do this, and understanding ways to then manage this risk in any industry, again, healthcare being harder, is essential to really building a sustainable model. So let's go back to our story. What could Dr. Tony and Mr. MBA have done differently?
Yeah, I mean, when you're putting new systems in place, you're making changes to your practice, whether it's operationally or otherwise, you want to make sure you have the team in place to protect the practice from every angle. And so Mr. MBA, have that self-awareness of what he knows, and, maybe bring Dr. Tony in at a deeper level to test the systems. Mm-hmm. If Dr. Tony was the person that was kind of gatekeeping the appropriate candidates for surgery. And so you needed to get him involved from a patient care perspective. But you also, if there's still gaps, bring in other advisors, whether it's healthcare counsel, accountants, financial advisors, or, practice advisors. You want to make sure that everything's covered so that you can keep an eye on compliance and risk, and put these guardrails up to allow you to keep going fast.
I don't know what's going on, Michael, but you're actually making a lot of good points. I must be finally rubbing off on you, so I'm glad to see it's finally working.
Yeah.
And audience, Michael's point is good. It is essential for good entrepreneurs to really have a diverse team, right? You want a range of different expertise to come in and bring their skill set with them. So that helps from a decision-making, meaning that you're not in some vacuum or where you're siloed and you all have the exact same skill set. So by addressing these gaps, businesses can actually maintain the momentum without, obviously, that Michael was just describing, without compromising, which is crucial to these operational aspects that Michael kind of was talking to. So from that perspective, it is critical to really implement a structured process while growing and ensuring that the team members all have the necessary knowledge and tools to navigate, especially with healthcare, these complex issues you raise, meaning educate.
Yeah, Brad. And so talk about the things that could have been done differently to manage the system that allowed someone like Miss Roberta to be operated on.
Yeah, so we were incorporating some type of filters during the patient intake process to identify potential mental health issues is really going to be critical, especially for plastic surgeons, to ensure that the patient's receiving care, it's appropriate care for what they truly need, meaning what treatments are really needed for what to solve their issues, and a doctor should meet with a team and develop these mental health screening questions and on the intake forms, and whether you're asking about anxiety and depression and past mental diagnosis or other surgeons that they had seen and what have been done. So the more details you can get back from these patients, the better chance you can have of flagging someone that you may never satisfy. And again, going back to our training your staff on are there any behavioral cues that they might see during the intake process? Again, I said it again, educate.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked before, I think, with our partner Jeff Siegel, the people that are, talking about their unhappiness because they're seeing their, the prior 4 physicians they've seen were terrible, but they're really happy, to be at this place.
Yeah.
There's cues like that, to your point, that you identify, and then again, to your point, educate and make sure everyone's on the same page. So, let's go to the other side of the coin, Brad. And we have patients that are going to get through, and they're going to be angry. You can't avoid, if you're going to have patients, having the angry patient scenario. talk about some options to manage angry patients.
Yeah, we've talked about this in other shows too. But first off, for the doctors and other providers and staff, you need to start working on to being able to perfect or really become good active listeners, allowing the patients to express their frustrations without interrupting, really demonstrating the value that you're listening to their concerns, which, for starters, helps to kind of de-escalate the tensions because you're listening. And while listening and before responding, remember to be empathetic, and that can help, again, calm them down. It doesn't mean that internally you're not struggling with what they're saying and accusing you, but you're sitting there to listen. And then once you have the opportunity to talk, explain your policies and your procedures clearly, ensuring the patient actually understands the rationale behind whatever is the friction that is causing it, and discuss why the practice is doing A, B, or C. The more transparent you can be while being calm and active listening, the more trust you actually will build up with that particular patient.
I mean, we've actually seen studies put out by malpractice carriers that say that the number one, to your point, Brad, the number one way to reduce the likelihood of getting sued for malpractice is effective communication. The flip side is that sometimes doctors put their head in the sand. They don't want to talk to the patient. They just have their staff interact when they're angry, and they don't engage
because they have to have a hard conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And so it goes a long way. It sounds so simple, yet so many make that mistake.
Yeah.
But sometimes, even if you do this, you're still going to have an upset patient. What else can the practice do to resolve this issue?
Well, and I'll give you options. Doesn't mean we agree with all of them, but sometimes it's simple as offering a redo, which doesn't really always work because, especially with a patient with Miss Ross, who you'll never satisfy them, right?
Right.
Because she just has that image in her head. So then you have the practice that can kind of fall back on a refund policy. Now, refund is, the policy, a good one is you're communicating up front and you're properly saying, here's what's happening. You're not saying you did anything professionally incorrect, but you're showing a willingness to listen to the patient and then reimburse the patient for what they went through. And, of course, in a good refund policy, you would have a refund agreement where the patient then releases you and other releases if they're going to get that refund.
Yes, and I think we need to state the obvious, but just give permission to recognize that once, a situation like this, emotions are triggered, particularly with someone with a mental health disorder. There's no other way to say it. It's super messy, and you can only control what you can control, which is how you respond. But to think that you're going to control, how the patient acts is obviously not realistic, and so it is messy and dicey.
Yeah. All right, we're almost out of time, Michael. So what happened with Dr. Tony?
Well, the killer bees attacked. Dr. Tony ended up being sued in a lawsuit by 3 patients, including by Miss Roberta. He was subject to a half a dozen board investigations.
Oh, Lord.
And just tarnished online through this forum and other forums.
But it's terrible. Dr. Tony or other providers really should pause and make sure before they implement, accelerations like that, they have good filters in place, and more importantly, that they have the staff well trained and educated how to kind of spot those red flags. Michael, what are your final thoughts?
No matter how fast you're scaling your practice, it's so important to have a crisis prevention strategy. So understanding compliance and risk and putting these guardrails that we've been talking about up to protect the business. And you also want to have a crisis management plan, because a crisis of some kind is not a matter of if, but when with any practice.
True. All right, everyone. Well, next Wednesday, we are back again, where we're here to discuss unintended consequences with a celebrity, Michael, guest, who's a singer, a songwriter, a keynote speaker, an executive coach. We have the one and only Cameron Atlas joining us. Thanks again for joining us today. And remember, if you like this episode, please subscribe, make sure to give us a 5-star rating, and share with your friends.
You can also sign up for the ByrdAdatto newsletter by going to our website at ByrdAdatto.com.
ByrdAdatto is providing this podcast as a public service. This podcast is for educational purposes only. This podcast does not constitute legal advice, nor does it establish an attorney-client relationship. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by ByrdAdatto. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Please consult with an attorney on your legal issues.